Right. Thanks, Dylan. Hi, everyone. I'm Jay Bearston. I am the Director of Heritage Outreach over here at the Washington State Historical Society. And for the whole team on the line today. So I'll just sort of briefly introduce Kelsey, who is our 250 communications guru. Allison, who I think a lot of you know, is our lead on local history services, and then Lorraine, who is our two 250 guru in general, who has been going all over the state, raising awareness for the 250th and doing a ton of amazing work connecting with communities across the state. So today, as Dylan said, we're talking about moments that made us. I'm going to be the host because this is a little bit of a pet project of mine. When we started talking about the 250th, generally, one of the big goals we had was to have a downloadable panel exhibit. Through a variety of twists and turns and different funding issues, we ended up partnering with other Western states on this idea because other Western states were discussing it. I've been kind of going to a monthly Western states meeting regarding the 250th for several years now, and this came up as just a really useful tool that everyone thought could be broadly applicable, broadly interesting. So, to sort of high level, a panel exhibit is sort of pre-packaged exhibition materials that are downloadable and printable by any user organization. So obviously a lot of our main audience is small museums around the state, but we really designed this one to be used by a wide variety of organizations, libraries, schools, county fairs, kind of anyone who's interested in engaging with the 250th. So one of the challenges that we ran into with this is how do you interpret 250 years of American history? Well, there's a lot there. So what we ended up doing was actually utilizing the exhibit from History Colorado, kind of our counterpart over in Colorado. They were doing an exhibit featuring individual moments across US history. So we adapted a handful of those moments into this exhibition. And what I'll do is just go ahead and start sharing my screen. Because we borrowed, actually, let me take one more step back. Because we borrowed a lot of content from the exhibition that is up in the History Colorado Center in Denver, and they wrote a lot of this content, and I'll let you know, I'll walk through the panels and kind of outline that. We do have this basically use agreement that you need to digitally sign with History Colorado, essentially saying that they own the intellectual property. And then once you fill out this form, and be sure to read all the text, then you will receive an email from them with a link to this page that I'm about to share with you for the that have the actual files on it, which we'll go through here shortly. So fill out the form, read the text. You'll receive an email with a link plus a passwords, because if you don't fill out the form, sign the form, you won't have access to the panels. Okay. Before I actually talk about the mechanics of the downloading and all that good stuff, I want to talk about the content a little bit. So um, you'll see these panels here. These sort of core panels are the ones that we took straight from History Colorado's exhibition. This is the interpretation that's up in Denver right now. And these featured objects you can see are the ones that are literally up in the exhibition in their museum. What we did was we kind of curated this batch of these core topics, and then we sorted them into these 5 themes drawn directly from the text of the Declaration of Independence. So we've got life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, consent of the governed, created equal, free and independent states, and then we mutually pledge to each other is our last one. I don't want to go too fast and get everybody to do. So you'll see the panels are organized under those five themes. And then the other big thing that we did as a Western States group was we wrote this introduction panel, which is custom to this smaller exhibit. This is not in the Denver Museum. And then an introduction panel for each theme, talking about that theme. It kind of gives a little bit of it. They're pretty short, but they give a little bit of historical context to the theme. And then we've grouped those selected moments from the History Colorado exhibition under each theme. I'll just start off by saying if you feel like a moment belongs in a different theme, you can scramble things all around. You can put any of the content anywhere that you would like in the exhibition. So we've got the theme panel for each of the five themes, the core panels from the History Colorado exhibit, and then I worked with some partners here in the Pacific Northwest, including the Oregon Historical Society, to produce these Pacific Northwest panels, which again are kind of housed under each of the five themes in a way that we thought made sense, but you're welcome to move them around, which feature stories, one each from Idaho, Oregon, and Washington. So they're also a little bit different format where the core panels from History Colorado are about kind of a single moment in time. Our Pacific Northwest group decided we are going to kind of do a little bit more thematic and then feature three moments in time, one from each state. So they're structured a little differently. We also have this nice panel of the high resolution print of the declaration, the document itself, if you're interested in printing that. And then I'll scroll all the way down to the bottom here, and talk about some of our kind of custom adaptation panels. So our wonderful colleague, Hannah Laurie Hine in Idaho, is working with a group called Their Story, which is an oral history gathering sort of digital online platform. And it's actually very intuitive to use. It's actually really nicely streamlined software. And the gentleman that she's been working with was really interested in our project, and especially kind of the cross-state application. So he is making Their Story software available free to use to anyone. And each state has their own QR code. So the idea is that you can hang up this panel in your exhibition, and if people want, they can scan the QR code and record some oral history, some reflections on the exhibition. There's some question prompts in there, and then those files will all come to us as the statewide partner for this project, and then we can distribute those files to the local community, if that's of interest to you to include in your exhibition. We also have these designed templates that if you wanted to add some local stories, which we'll talk about that a little bit more later, you can download these kind of blank templates and add text and images and different things that you would like from your local history. We've got the Illustrator compatible files as PDFs, but we also have an option. Thank you, Kelsey, for making these available in Canva. So if you are familiar with Canva, you can just click here on this Canva link. It'll open up in Canva at the right size. It'll have the fonts in there, so you can just start kind of easy designing through that online graphic design software to add any local content if you like. And then the fonts here. So, kind of going back up to the top, when you land on this page after you've signed the user agreement or the license agreement, you can download the implementation guide, which we'll walk through here in just a minute. You can download all of the panels that I just talked through as a fairly large zip file. It's about 3.5 gigabytes. And we've had a few people that have had some problems with this, either downloading it because it's a super large file or opening it. Some computers have sort of security settings against opening zip files because, kind of I think a lot of spamming and phishing attacks come through zip files. So if you're having trouble with the zip file, I'll show you that you can download each panel individually by browsing through. So if you click on this download high-res PDF, that will download a copy of this one panel as a single panel, and you should be able to access each panel individually. If you're trying to download them all and you can't open a zip, that's a lot of clicks. I apologize. But if you're having any technical problems with that zip file, that is one other way to access the files for printing. You'll notice that there's a lot of content here. We produced a lot with History Colorado, with our Pacific Northwest partners, with the intention that we didn't think that any one space would probably be able to host all, I think, 33 panels, including the Pacific Northwest ones. So please don't feel obligated to use them all. We'll show you a few diagrams in the implementation guide of how you can adapt this for your space. We actually have heard from some folks in other places in Hawaii in particular. They're just using the theme panels. They're just using the intro and the theme panels, and that's just what they're going to put in their space. And that's 6 panels, and that's what they're going to use. So you can literally use any as few or as many as you want to have kind of a complete experience. We have some suggestions for you in the implementation guide. But I was chatting with the Western States folks and History Colorado, who with that form that you fill out and submit, they're kind of everything's routing through their system. There's about 240 people that have signed up to use this across not just the Western states, actually. We've got folks in Maine and Hawaii and Arkansas, all over the United States using this. So we're actually really excited that that this is appealing to so many folks. All right, team. Anything else I should cover before I move into the implementation guide? Did I miss anything about the panel content itself? All right, let's jump into the implementation guide, get into the nitty-gritty of how do you do this. So once you download the implementation guide, you'll get this PDF, and here's the group of states that have signed on to kind of be distribution partners for the project. But as I said, there's a bunch of other states that are jumping in and using this and promoting it since we published the implementation guide. The implementation guide is pretty thorough. I'm going to scroll down here to our diagrams here. So this is kind of the diagram of how the exhibition was conceived with the introduction panel. We've got the declaration panel, 5 theme panels, 3 moments under each theme, and for the Pacific Northwest, we've got an additional set of 2 each under each theme here, and then that reflection panel through the Their Story online platform. I will say, as I said, you can use some of these, all of these, or as many as you like. So one way you could adapt this high level of content is to focus on 1 or 2 or 3 of the individual themes. So you have your intro panels, and then you pick 1 or 2 or maybe 3 of the themes that resonate with you, and you use some or all of the panels under each of those themes. So you can see that in this sample, you've got created equal, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Those are the ones that are focused on here. And then you have, something around 10 to 12 panels, which is a little bit more manageable than perhaps, the full set, obviously. That's one strategy. Another strategy is if you like all of the themes, you could select all five, but then just pick one moment per theme to reflect on, or add some from your local history if you like. And again, this is a little more than 10 to 13 panels here, which is a little bit more manageable of a size. And another strategy, our third strategy, which I think is probably the most exciting, is to rotate the content throughout the summer or throughout the year. So you can do that using either strategy from before. So pick one or two or three themes to highlight for the first half of the exhibition, and then highlight the other themes for the second half of the exhibition. And you can see here in the sample in the red, it's the same amount of panels because when I have three themes, I'm only picking two moments. But then when I have two themes, I'm picking all three moments. And so each time you have six moments that are being featured. And then I have in this sample the intro, the declaration, and the reflection panel being up for the full run of both halves of the exhibition. You could also do this keeping the all five theme panels up throughout the year and just rotate the moments that are featured under them as well. And you could rotate some local content if you want it. All right. Then the implementation guide goes into kind of talking about each of the panels and what their purpose is. So I'll let you read all of that detail, but mostly just want to mention that all of the kind of prepared content has been reviewed and vetted and is designed to be used as is. So please don't modify the text. That's part of what you're signing when you sign the digital agreement, is that you're not going to change these. And then I've got all the moments panels here. These are the Pacific Northwest panels. And then the reflection panel, again, please don't modify this one. But then it talks a little bit about the ones that are designed to be modified. So you're also welcome to kind of do some additional designing and put your own flair on it. These layouts were designed just as a starting point if that is looking like something that you want to use. We also have a sample object item template, real basic. If you wanted to put any objects from your collection up alongside any local content that you've customized through the local panels, which again is available for use in Canva. And then a couple other tools we have here in the implementation guide are a press release sample, which you're welcome to adapt. Again, use as much or as little as you like, but it's just some text to get you started. And then a couple of social media posts, again, copy and paste right out of the implementation guide. So that would be great. And then Kelsey made some great social media template or graphics templates. So kind of again, use, adapt, modify, adjust for your purposes. This is just to get you started. And then here's a version of a poster or a printout flyer if you want. And again, all of these are linked in Canva directly from the implementation guide. So you can just click right through, set up an account, a free account if you don't have one, and then start cutting and pasting, drop your logo in, add text, add a photo, different things like that. These are fonts and colors that were used in the design files. And then I want to pause here on the cost estimates. These cost estimates were developed basically just by going on to like a FedEx Kinko's type site and estimating if I were to print this number of panels, as you scale up in the number of panels, the cost per panel goes down. And then using a few different materials as well. So if you're just printing on paper, which obviously is not super durable. It's much cheaper if you get it mounted on a foam core or gator board. That's a little more durable and mobile, a little more expensive. One thing that Lorraine has been talking about as she's been doing outreach around the state is to actually partner with other community organizations to pool some money to do one printing that could travel around your community. So maybe it spends a week or two at the library, or spends a few weeks at the museum, or maybe the county fair, which is only open for, 2 weeks anyway, has it up, but then it goes to the museum afterward or before. So that is a way that this tool can reach more folks in your community, and that you can pool resources together for those printing costs, because we know folks don't have a lot of money to pull off something for the 250th. We feel you there. And I will note that these costs are all when it says all 23 panels, that's in reference to the intro, theme, reflection, and core panels. The Pacific Northwest panels puts that up at 33. So again, I don't anticipate anyone using all of these panels, because they're just so large and there's not enough space for that. But that would the 23 is in reference to the group of panels without the Pacific Northwest content. We've got a few installation tips. Just wanted to call your attention to this for hanging and printing. If you're looking for some information about that, like I said, if you're able to print on foam core or gator board, then it could be as simple as putting things on an easel, and then those could more easily transport around your community if you're having multiple organizations pool their resources together. All right, using local stories and collections. So this was a section that we developed as a team to try to get folks to think about adapting their local stories into this. So again, we understand there's a lot of content that you're working with, but we also loved the idea of local museums being able to pull a few panels that are pre-designed, and then pull some stories from their local community that align with the themes and the concepts from the exhibition that we put together. So this is designed to sort of spark an idea, not so much tell you exactly what to interpret from your local community. But from each of the themes, this one's life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, we kind of ask you to consider how that might apply in your local community. So, looking at life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, we talk in the core exhibition about Americans seeking to build better lives for themselves and their communities, so commitment to community also. So we kind of have three different angles that you could consider that from a local perspective. What are the oldest items in your collection, and what do they say about settlement in your area, and how that affected different groups and people moving and settling and trying to build community? How did that happen in your area? And how does that relate to the concept of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? Another way that people move around and build community is when major industries come and go. So we have kind of a section here about thinking about how industry has shaped your local community, and how that's affected people's ability or interest in life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And then we kind of took the third angle of infrastructure. How has bridges, dams, roads, how has the development of all of the physical pieces of your community affected how people have built community, how communities have developed over time? So trying to be specific enough to be helpful, but not so specific that 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 it's that not all everyone can see themselves reflected in the questions and the ideas that we've brought up here. And then similarly for consent of the governed, we've got a section talking about kind of news, media, freedom of the press. How does that affect how has that been represented in your community over time? And how has that affected people's relationship with their local, state, or national government? What about citizen-led initiatives or ballot measures? How does that explore the theme of consent of the governed and people being involved in their government from the, again, local, state, or national level? And then civic associations and groups. Most communities have lots of history related to groups throughout time that have had major influences on the community, on how laws are shaped, how governments are shaped. So that's another angle to consider. For created equal, there have been a lot of movements for social justice and civil rights throughout America's history, and that has not only played out on the national stage, but at the local level too. So, what are the local stories from your community that have to do with social justice and civil rights, and who were the major figures in your community that made a difference? Again, kind of taking the angle of laws and court decisions. Have there been local laws or court decisions in your community that have affected people's civil rights? And then another main topic we selected for this one is labor laws, labor work. There is a labor related panel in the core exhibition, so that's a nice tie in there. But a lot of communities have really rich labor history, and so that's an avenue that a local community could use to tell some really great local stories. Free and independent states, this one's a little more wonky, a little harder maybe to connect to, because from the national panels, we kind of talk about the separation of state and federal government, and kind of the balance of governmental power. So we've got a few prompts and questions around here or under this topic. So. What did your community look like before your state was formed, and what were the changes after statehood went into effect? What are some important ways that court decisions, federal or state court decisions, have affected your community and that dynamic? And then federal programs, I think, is a way that a lot of local communities can see the effect of the federal government in their lives, from the New Deal, Community Conservation Corps, TVA, to the GI Bill. There's a lot of federal actions that have affected local communities, and so kind of that kind of balance of local, state, federal power and interaction. How has that looked in your community? And finally, we mutually pledge to each other. This one, we like ending with this because the idea is that in addition to the signers of the Declaration recognizing that they needed to all move together to make the revolution possible, we like that idea of us as a nation continuing to mutually pledge to each other to move forward as a nation as well. So we've got some prompts around service in your community and what has that looked like. When in times of crisis have folks banded together, mutually pledged to each other to help folks get through times of crisis? And then what are some kind of community resources that people have banded together to support the arts or serving other community needs? What are ways your community has worked together to improve your community? So this also gives a lot of opportunity for maybe some interpretation around more recent events as well as historical events. And then finally, we've got a list here of some ideas for programming. Thank you, especially to Dylan, who assembled this for us. Some basic ideas and some links out to some things. Um, I won't go through every single line, but we've got some ideas for if you're looking to engage younger audiences, more some kind of adult themed, well, older adult learners, shall we say. And then some hands-on in gallery activities. We've got the Their Story QR uh, uh, option in here, which is built into the exhibition. A wishing wall, which is is another great project. Some ways you can engage folks in your gallery or in your space beyond having the panels, having them interact a little bit in the gallery. So um, with that, I think I will stop the share screen unless folks want to look back at any of the materials and ask my colleagues if I left out any important details. Please feel free to hop in if I missed
We did.
anything.
We just had a question in the chat I wanted to call to your attention. There was a question about one of the national panels, the 19th Amendment, and whether there is any chance of us doing any Washington State doing anything more Washington State specific for that one.
Ooh, great question. Unfortunately, no. I think we've reached our capacity as far as putting out the content for this exhibition. Um, I I don't know if there's a way we could see if other groups are putting content together and try to share that out. Was there something specific?
That was my
Oh, addition.
question. So even just general, not necessarily like Washington State focused. It's just the labor wars and the 19th Amendment are super Colorado focused. And it
Yeah.
works for the labor wars because it's very story focused. But for the 19th Amendment, it makes it seem like Colorado's who made it happen.
Fair enough. Yeah, that is a little bit of the downside of the the generosity of Colorado in letting us just adapt wholesale their content from their exhibition. There were a few panels from the Colorado exhibition that we did sort of like change some of the references, like where they referenced only Denver. We were added a few other cities from across the Northwest or the West, and adapted a few things. So yeah, unfortunately, we're not really planning to create adaptations of the Colorado content. It's a little bit of a limitation of how this got designed. But thank you for the question. Yeah, Allison, go ahead.
I was just wondering, we have such great stuff related to suffrage in Washington State in our collection, and hopefully, likely, maybe. I know Sophia, you're not coming from a museum, but I wonder, Jay, if we could have a conversation with Maggie about um, allowing access to some of our collections materials for people creating customized panels for the exhibit. Does that make sense? Like that's something maybe we'll explore on our end, Sophia, and let you know. Because we, of course, just had the Suffrage Centennial a few years ago. We've got stuff all scanned high res. There's awesome stuff. And normally there's like usage fees and things, but I wonder if we can have a conversation about if you're using something as part of this exhibit, maybe we can ease that process a little bit to accessing that. We'll follow up and get back to you.
And I will also just say, I know we had done a suffrage exhibit for the suffrage centennial. And so we have lots of materials around suffrage if you are looking to develop local content. And then I will also say a great resource for the labor movement if you're looking, especially for like a local connection, a really great first stop. I'll drop the link in the chat. There is the UW Labor Archives, Connor there is a really great resource. And so would be, again, there we just have some really great resources if you are looking for kind of a particular local tie-in for any of those, that kind of content.
Just going through the chat to see if there are any other questions.
Yeah,
Oh, thanks.
actually, Jay, I'm gonna just interrupt, but Sophia, I'm just curious because you're from the fair, and thank you so much for being here and thinking about using the panel exhibit. That is definitely one of the things that we are trying to push out, not only to the county fairs, but to pretty much any large event that's going to take place in the state this summer, or even more community smaller events. But is this something that you're working in the Yakima area with the some of our other community partners? You know, Jay kind of touched upon this idea of having an exhibit that travels around the community. Is that something that you've been looking
So
at or
we've
you're interested in doing something like that?
We've just been talking about using it in-house for our 4th of July event and then also
Mm-hmm.
during the fair. And we're
Okay,
planning actually a pretty big exhibit. We're using 34 of the panels because we're doing them in
great,
Spanish as well. Um,
great.
and then during the fair, Fort Walla Walla Museum's living history reenactors are going to come
Mm-hmm.
up and we'll have some gold panning and it should be pretty fun.
Oh, great, great. And are you, by chance, you're not also the location for the FIFA fan zone, are you, or are you?
We're a part of it, but it's at Sozo Stadium, so it's not
Sozo,
here.
okay. Because that
Yep.
was another thing that I've tried to push with the fan zones is possibly to have some of the panel exhibit available at those locations as well. Yeah, great. That's
Okay.
wonderful. Can't wait to see
Yeah,
some photos of your panel exhibit because we
absolutely.
definitely will, we want to keep track of that for the archives. That sounds great. Thank you so much for doing that.
Yeah, we're thrilled.
And Sophia, we'd love to help you promote that as well. That sounds like such a cool community showing. So yeah, send me anything you'd love me to put on social media, and I'd be happy to share that out for you.
Well, that brought up two very important points that I forgot to mention in my presentation. So I am going to share screen real quick here again. Um, First is that we do have the intro, the themes, and the Colorado panels available in Spanish. And to find that, you click on this button right here underneath the intro here. And then you've got uh, all of the panels available for high-res printing in Spanish. You'll notice the Pacific Northwest panels, unfortunately, we did not have the bandwidth to create Spanish translated ones. Again, this Spanish translation is coming directly from the Colorado exhibit. They translated their entire exhibit in Spanish, and so they already had their Spanish translation, and then had their translator do the intro and then the theme panels for this exhibition. So we're very, very lucky to be able to offer at least partial due to all of the great work over in Colorado. And Allison had mentioned it might be nice to have kind of a printed letter size version of the Spanish panels available for folks to have in their galleries if once if the English panels are posted, even if don't have the space to post English and Spanish side by side, you can at least have a smaller printed version of the Spanish for any visitors who might need that. So we can get that going. And then the last thing that I wanted the other thing that prompted was kind of follow up. So as folks utilize these panels, put them up in their spaces. We would love to see photos. We have all your contact information because of where you signed up to download for the download link. So we'll be following up also with a survey about kind of how did you use it? Like how many panels did you end up using? What did it kind of look like? Did this work for you? Would you do this again? Type of stuff. But then also asking how many visitors did you get? Did you do any added local history content? We'd love to know kind of what worked, what didn't. I think one of the things that made this so exciting in the Western states conversations was that, oh, we could all use the same tool. I don't think that there's a ton of people who are going to be traveling to, you know, 200 sites across the Western US that will get a repeat experience. But even if you do get a little bit of repeat experience, hopefully it's a little bit different everywhere you go. Um, and this helps with not having to reinvent the wheel. People can share content, adapt it a little bit for their own space, their own local history, but they have something to start with. So we would love to do something like this again at a major commemorative, the next major commemorative date, or even regionally in the Pacific Northwest. There's lots of different commemorations that happen every, decade or two. There's something big that happened. And so trying to kind of share resources, create a tool like this that a lot of different people can use and adapt, I think is a really exciting concept, and we'd like to do it again. So we'd like to know what worked and what didn't. And so please, as we follow up with the sort of evaluation survey, be honest. Let us know, because we want to make this type of tool more useful and better moving into the future. Sophia's posted a link.
It looks awesome, Sophia. Thank you for sharing.
Ooh, you've got some cool graphics already going.
I love the
Nice.
entrance too. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, this is looking awesome. This is exciting. Yeah, we're really excited to see kind of how this core group of panels gets used and adapted, and would love to see photos of everything that y'all are doing across the state. Lorraine, were you?
I was going to jump in again, Jay, just to kind of reiterate what Dylan said at the very beginning. But please, all of you guys, you are partners, and thank you so much for your support. But one of your benefits is that we want to help promote your events and activities. So please, please make sure make sure the County Fair Sophia is already on our events calendar if you haven't done it already. I think Shirley said you're getting ready to do an exhibit in May, I believe you put in the chat. Please make sure you put that stuff in our events calendar so we can help promote you. We are working with tourism groups all over the state to have special tourism tie-ins to send people to not only see these exhibits, but to go see museums and other groups that are participating. So please make sure we have that information. If you do have problems or you don't know where to do the events calendar, just reach out to us. We're more than willing to help you with that. And as always, Dylan is 2 steps ahead of me. I'm not smart enough to talk and put messages into the chat at the same time. But thank you, Dylan and Allison, for always making sure we get the links.
All right. Any other questions or any other ideas people want to share or chat about? Or we could wrap up a little early, and that's okay too.
I'll just say I did not plan any adult themed events, activities along with this, so that's on you if that's what you want to do. But but hopefully all these resources are helpful even just as a brainstorming. It's not an exhaustive list by any means, but just lots of opportunities for ways to engage through this moment.
And I'll just add, because I know our friend Sue joined a little bit late, we will send this recording out and it'll also be posted on our YouTube channel. So if you want to share it or any of your colleagues have questions or anything, and if that's helpful, you'll be able to forward it along.
And it will also post it on the America 250 Washington website in our webinars section. We have all the webinars we've done for 250 listed there, so you can find this information in multiple places.
Great. Well, give it one more chance for hands. Okay. Well, with that, please reach out if you have any questions. Lorraine's kind of our main point of contact for all things 250. So I would start with the info at america250wa.org is kind of our there it is in the chat. And then Lorraine can route that to the correct person to get questions answered. So please reach out with any questions. And then, as I said, we have all of your emails if you've gotten the download link. So we'll be following up to get more details from you about all the creative ways you're using this material. We really appreciate you making 250 happen in your community. So thank you, everybody. And we'll be in touch in a little while. Thanks, everyone.